So good afternoon, everyone. This is Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council. And today is Monday, right before Thanksgiving. I know many people are trying to take some time off and enjoy the week ahead. Hopefully all of you are staying safe. I know that our COVID counts have definitely gone up, but that doesn't mean that we still can't have some good times and just stay safe. So I'm thrilled about being here today with Fredrik Ruben, the CEO of Tobii Dynavox. I am going to introduce him in a moment. I always want to give a shout out and deep appreciation to Huntington Bank. They have been our partners right from the beginning of COVID. Hard to believe that we're in our 8th month of doing these daily updates, but actually it gives me great thrill to hear about what's going on right in our community, and today is absolutely no exception. So Jonathan Kirsting is with us today. He's Vice President of all things media and marketing and storytelling. And he actually is doing lots of stories each and every day that I think if you go to our website, you'll see the amount of people that we've been talking to and just continually learning about and shining the light on. So if we have questions for today, Jonathan's going to be looking at the chat and monitoring that. And I will be trying to direct the conversation, but it's mostly casual. So we're pretty thrilled about that. We've muted you. And I do want to warn you that my dogs, for some reason at noon today, are not on their best behavior. They usually are. But today they are not. So I don't know what's up, but I don't know what's up, but just to give you some fair warning on that. The other thing is that this isn't a time for you to sell your wares. This is a time for you to get to know Tobii Dynavox. That's what this is about. So I am going to jump in. And first of all, I want to tell everyone that live from Stockholm is CEO Fredrik Ruben. And we had a chance to just chat a little bit before we went live and talked a little bit about what's happening in Stockholm, what's happening with Tobii Dynavox, and how many hours of day of of light there is. I was going to say sunshine, Fredrik, but I meant light. And I know that everyone gets used to it. If you've not been to Stockholm, you really should. And hopefully one day when we're all back post-COVID, we will continue to do our international travels. And Stockholm is definitely a place where we would love to visit and take many of our member companies. So Fredrik, we're going to start and we're going to talk about you. Let's talk about Fredrik, you. Who is Fredrik Ruben? How long have you been at the helm? How did you get there? And then we're going to talk a little bit about Tobii Dynavox.
Sure. Hey, Audrey. Hey, Pittsburgh. Guys, I miss you badly. And it's so great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm Fredrik. I am sending this broadcast from a pitch dark Stockholm, Sweden. It's 6 o'clock in the evening, but the sun already set at 3 today, so we're getting used to it. And Stockholm in Sweden is also the headquarters for Tobii Dynavox, but as you may then understand, Pittsburgh is a very central part of our operation. I've been at the helm of Tobii Dynavox this is my 7th year, and kind of wake up every day and typically pride myself a lot with being a tech company CEO, but I also say I cry at least twice a week because of the magic that some of our stuff does. And it's a unique position to get handwritten love letters from all around the world, still doing, tech. Yeah. That's what I do. I live here. This is my house, and this is like everyone else these days. This is where I'm confined to, so I'm not going to the office either. Regardless of what you hear about Sweden in the news, we're actually very locked down. Father of 3, super outdoorsy, scout leader, and all other things outside of working. That's me.
That's you. And yeah. So let's talk about Tobii. Okay, let's talk about, because Dynavox is how we knew Tobii. And there's some history there. So Dynavox has been around in Pittsburgh, I think, longer than Jonathan or Brian have been at the Technology Council.
Yeah, no, the story is that Tobii is originally a Swedish company founded by 3 guys here in Stockholm in 2001. So we turn 20 next year, which is, a certain age. Oh, wow. And Tobii is all about eye tracking. developing devices that understands what a person is looking at. And then since about 2005 or so, one of the application areas has been in assistive technology. So if you know what you're looking at, that means you can control a mouse or something on a screen, even though you're paralyzed. And it's actually quite interesting that in a lot of conditions, the body as such may malfunction, but your eyes still works. And then if I fast forward or backward a little bit, in 2014, we acquired the Pittsburgh-based company Dynavox.
Right.
Dynavox, however, they had been around all this since 1983.
Right.
And we've been focusing, these two companies, we were focusing on the same segment, meaning helping people with disabilities and specifically those who cannot communicate. Whereas we came from the technology side and eye tracking, and Pittsburgh-based Dynavox came more from the clinical side,
Right.
and other means. So that's the story. We merged over 5 years, 2014.
Right.
And we've been one company since.
So, but it's so fascinating because when you think about technology today and you think about even COVID and contactless, right? You know, you moved into this contactless world. Your applications could actually transcend just
It's your cousin's company.
variety of just of it. So someone was not on mute. Okay. So have a variety of different abilities. What is so describe your target market and your customers, because I feel like you have application across all of us.
Yeah, so our target users have one thing in common. They cannot communicate in a normal way that you and I can. It's either because of a physical condition, say you're paralyzed because of an accident, or because you've acquired ALS or something like that, but you're still functioning in the same way. You're able to do what you once did, but you now have to use technology. That's one part of our user group. The other one are kids who were born with a condition, cerebral palsy or autism, where some of them are not necessarily physically disabled or hampered. They're actually cognitively or simply don't have the means to form language the way that you and I can do. That's our customer group. There's about 50 million people working the face of the earth right now who needs assistive technology to communicate, and that's our target group.
And so when you talk about that target group, it's every age range?
It is every age range. So we have kids as young as 6 months old, but they were born with a condition and are starting to explore what we call cause and effect. I do something and something else happens. In normal development, that's when I drop something or push something or scream something loud or smile or laugh for that matter. But we use then technology to come over that barrier. And then we have people of all ages. A very common condition is aphasia, which typically comes after a stroke, and there's predominantly an older population that has that, but we have all ranges and all age groups.
And so Brian just posted something here, if you haven't seen it, that Patrick Quinn, the co-founder of the Ice Bucket Challenge, if everyone remembered, actually passed away from ALS.
Yeah, super sad. Yeah, that news reached me yesterday. Pat was a dear friend of ours, a user of our products, and a fantastic person in not just in the Ice Bucket Challenge, but he was one of the big advocates for our users. So it's a great loss, and it's unfortunately also the horrible condition of ALS, which unfortunately it's a part of it. But by definition, as you can imagine, our users are also vulnerable, especially in a COVID situation.
Right. So when your products transform lives, and I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into it, but for everyone around the world, I mean, it doesn't matter what language, it doesn't matter where they live. You have a team in Pittsburgh,
yes.
Right? And then you have a team where else? Tell us a little bit about the constructs of your organization, so
Sure.
people can get a sense of, even though you've had presence in Pittsburgh for almost 4 decades, talk about who's here in Pittsburgh, who's around the world, what kind of jobs people have.
Yeah, sure. So we're roughly 500 people in my team, but the US is not just our biggest market from a commercial perspective, even though we're actually present in, I believe, 65 countries or so selling our products. But the US is our by far largest market. And Pittsburgh is the headquarters for not only our US commercial operation, it's also where we have our largest R&D office. So we develop our software products, we develop our hardware products, not all of them, but a significant portion of our products in our South Side office in Pittsburgh. But we also have, it's the center for our commercial operation in the US. Our products are prescribed. So the payer is typically Medicare, Medicaid, Aetna, Blue Shield, and whatnot, all the insurance providers. But that is a quite complex process to get through. So we also have some significant expertise in handling provider contracts and as well as handling and processing funding packages in Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh is a super important office and a hub for our operation as well.
So what kinds of people work for Tobii? I mean, do you have people that are speech pathologists? Do you have, obviously you have software designers? What about hardware? Where are things manufactured?
Yeah, we have a plethora of different expertise. We have users as well working for our company. So whether that is in tech support or developing our products. But I would say that we have the full range of a tech company who's also a commercial operation. So you have everything from people working in finance or marketing or administration, all the way to developing both hardware and software. Typically, our devices are not manufactured in the US, they're typically manufactured elsewhere, but they're designed, constructed, and developed, for example, in Pittsburgh. In addition to that, you have the clinical side. So it's not just about building a device, it's also about understanding human language development. And just as you said, Audrey, we have speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, but then we also have a lot of graphic artists because we need to develop a communication language which to a large degree is symbol based. It's not just letters and numbers. We need to overcome some other hurdles as well that some of our users may have. And then last but not least, super important, Pittsburgh is also a logistics hub. So any device that's being shipped out to a user in the US or Canada comes from our Southside Pittsburgh facility. They're also being repaired there. We have loaner pools, etc. So it's a full little company. We're about 250 people or so in our office in Pittsburgh.
So how about if I have a child that's under the age of 21 or 22 and they have a communicative disorder, for lack of a better term right now. They have a communicative disorder. How would I obtain one of these devices? Is it through an individualized education plan?
It could be both. It could be either through your school, and there, of course, you have the IEPs, as you referred to, where the school actually has an obligation to ensure that this child has the right means to be able to be educated properly. Mm-hmm. We also actually make the solutions for the teacher to be able to have classroom activities that are made accessible for the kids. But maybe an even more common route is that at the time of diagnosis, you will also, among other therapies and assistance that you get, is that you will meet a speech language pathologist. And that speech language pathologist hopefully has been educated and understand that there is technology that can help this child. So one route of trying to make this child as successful as possibly can be is to do an assessment to see whether a communication device such as the ones that we do is appropriate for that child. So there are certain routes, but I would say school or a therapist in one way is where it typically starts.
Or a doctor's order?
Yes, the doctor plays an important role, but it's the doctor is more on the kind of the condition side to put the label on it. Our devices is typically there to make sure that you're more successful, and that's where they come in. But as you can imagine, there's a whole crew of people around a user to make them successful. It would be wrong to say that super engaged parents is a very, very important element of a super successful child. So
Right.
we spend a lot of efforts on educating and helping also caregivers and parents.
And so if I have a child who meets that criteria, is the device specified and individualized for my child?
To a certain degree, yes. So individualization happens both kind of on a hardware perspective. If you're confined to a wheelchair, etc.,
Right.
then of course it needs to be set up so it functions with your wheelchair or your hospital bed or whatever. And then the software is highly personalized, but that typically evolves over time, so that my communication device looks potentially very, very different from the kid next to me in school or my neighbor.
Okay.
But that individualization happens over time, and it's more on the software side. The actual communication device is typically, a set of standard components that we
Okay,
provide.
so that's great. So last week, I think you had an announcement about the release of something called Boardmaker 7.
Yep.
And that's really focused also on the special ed community. Can you talk about what that means? And how does that affect educators as well?
Sure. So Tobii Dynavox is not just about making that communication device.
Right.
It's also, like I mentioned briefly, the tool for the special education teacher. Actually, in some things, it's not just special ed, it's actually also mainstream ed. But to make classroom material that is adapted towards a set of students that have certain conditions. So Boardmaker is yet another thing that has been around for ages. Boardmaker has been the go-to solution for special ed teachers for 30 years. If I'm not wrong, we have well over 6 million students using it in 50 or so countries. So again, it's a very well-established, typically symbol communication software. And we've been spending a lot of money and effort and time to make it really cutting edge, the latest technology. By the way, total stamp made in Pittsburgh on it. Everything is made in Pittsburgh.
Nice. Nice. Is there like a stamp somewhere in there?
We're probably going to have it. Now it's a software as a service, so we don't really have a box, but if we had a box, we would have the big made in Pittsburgh stamp for sure.
So could you put something in there when you're SaaS and then just say Pittsburgh inside?
I see. I have some colleagues on this call, so I think we take that to the list. Absolutely, Audrey, and copyright Pittsburgh Tech Council.
So you also, this is free advice I'm giving you, by the way.
Thank you.
We're not asking for any licensing. So tell us, you about a month ago, I mean, you've been really busy during COVID. A month ago, you announced a new partnership with Google.
Yes.
And so what is that? So, what does that mean? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So probably second most asked for feature among our users after being able to communicate, face to face or over social media is to be able to control things around you. Turning on lights or opening the blinds and stuff like that. And that has been either done by bespoke assistive technology solutions that requires a lot of installation and are typically very expensive, or on the other end of that scale, you have users who have been using Amazon Alexa or Apple HomeKit or Google Home. But how that has worked then is that they have a device, right? And then device says, hey, Google, turn on the lights. And then the Google Home device has to hear that, interpret that, and then hopefully turn on the lights. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of reasons how that could fail. You're in the wrong room, for example. So what we have done together with Google, we've been working on this for probably a year and a half, is to make our communication devices become a remote control for the Google Home. So they actually, with the use of just your eye gaze, can look at a button and say, turn on the lights, and the lights turn on. Open the blinds, order pizza. You can pretty much do everything here. And we're super proud of this. And I know that my friends at Google are super proud of this, because I think we can all imagine how much of liberty and how much normality that means for a lot of our youth. So, and this all happened during COVID. So you're right, we didn't stop, and it's pretty cool.
Any other pivots or any information during COVID that perhaps I didn't ask? I talked about Boardmaker and Google. Is there anything else?
No, my colleagues typically has referred to this fall as the avalanche of product launches, because actually what's happened, we've stayed very productive despite the fact that we've been working from home. I think one of the assets of being a truly global company is that we already had the infrastructure of, digital communication, collaboration, despite the fact that you're in different time zones or different offices. So there's definitely the degree when you didn't have all the distractions of being in an office. We've been very productive during 2020, despite all the hurdles that this little disease has put up for us. So we're continuing to launch. You named two examples. We've been releasing hardware, eye trackers that works out in sunshine, which maybe is less relevant for Stockholm right now, but but in Australia.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
so, and you also have been renovating your offices.
That is true. Now, this may sound like it was, because of COVID. We actually did start before, but it turns out, of course, that we have a wonderful office in the Birmingham Towers on just off Carson Street.
Right.
It's a magnificent big building, old structure from 100+ years old.
Right.
And but it's it was in need of some love, and right now we've been accelerating both a renovation of the actual office, and we're also expanding to a new floor. So hopefully when this whole thing is over and people can slowly return to their offices, it will also not just be nice to meet their colleagues, hopefully will be a nice office to return to too.
So it's great. You have a lot of enthusiasm for Pittsburgh too. I just want to use this for an opportunity. Are you hiring right now in the middle of COVID? Are you hiring in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, no, I just checked. We've been hiring about 25 positions up until now in 2020 alone. So nothing, it hasn't stopped.
Nice.
We have plenty of colleagues who have never seen other colleagues or the office for that matter. They've seen each other this way.
Yeah. How has that been in terms of onboarding? Do you know?
This has been a global thing. It's not just for our Pittsburgh colleagues. I mean, if we have colleagues in China or Germany or Denmark or Stockholm or UK, it's the same thing. It's going to be very interesting. For that short period of time when we were actually allowed to travel again here in Europe, we hired a new great colleague from the Netherlands. He came to the office and the hiring manager was so surprised because he was 7 foot tall and he had no idea. But we're continuing to hire in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is important for us. If I'm not wrong, we have 6 or so open positions this very moment. So and it's all over the scale. It's not just in tech, but we're a tech company, but we need all kinds of colleagues.
So let's think about your market really quick. How many people around the world do you think have communicative disorders?
We typically say there's 50 million people. And that is an approximation from that it's somewhere around 0.5 of the world's population have a condition which renders them unable to communicate. And it's pretty much the same regardless where you live. It's not that it's a higher prevalence in Pittsburgh than in Sweden or in some country far away, right? So it's a big part of the population. The vast majority of these people have no assistance. They're locked in. They are unassisted. They're unable to fulfill their dreams or be who they are, either because there's no funding system. The funding systems also in markets like Spain or Italy has very poor funding systems,
right? Or
for the other reason where the awareness of the stuff that we do is very low, also among the professionals. This is high tech, but it's not the future. It's out there. We're helping tens of thousands of people every year. It's paid for through government-sponsored insurance programs or private insurance programs. It's not a thing of the future. It's here and now.
So is there any way that you keep like user groups connected? Do you have families that are connected? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I would say that still Facebook is probably a super important platform. We have a user and communities. They're not necessarily just users. It's a lot of moms and dads and parents and professionals as well. But it's pretty cool to see that in some of our user forums, either the truly big ones, there's a lot of support questions. How do I do this? And even though we have staff fully dedicated and monitoring that. They are probably the second or third on the ball because there's someone else that goes in and help them, hopefully also correctly. So user groups are tremendously important, and they're important for each other. It's also a very good way to keep us honest, because we do things less good sometimes. Sometimes we need feedback, and those groups are super important. I hope again to be back in a day when we can have summer camps supported by us for kids using our devices, etc., etc. And
have you done that in the past?
absolutely, that's part of what we do and how we do things, and we do that internationally. We have a fantastic session. I think it's in Heidelberg in Germany every year, where a lot of our users, they come together, and it's they've been doing that for I don't know 15 years. It's like this big it's a party in a good way.
Wow. And so the American Disabilities Act, what did we celebrate? How many years is American Disability? It was 30 years.
30 years,
right?
correct. Yeah, that was not too long ago. Yeah, it's
and so how do we stack in terms of the rest of the world and compared to that in terms of the US?
Very good, actually. And that's if you say that to European, we think about the US, highly privatized, nothing is working, which I can tell for sure it's not true. We're extremely proud because what the American system did many years ago was to recognize the disability of being unable to communicate is as much a disability as not being able to see or hear or move around. So that's one of the reasons actually why the US is one of our biggest markets, because there's no discussion whether your child's ability to communicate is as much a problem for us and we need to fix it as her inability to move around or hear or see. So very good. Then maybe if there's something I could ask for is a little bit less red tape and a little bit less paperwork and administration.
Right.
But we can actually take a big responsibility as a company to make that smoother as well. So all in all,
So
quite happy.
If people go to your website, will they see demos? Are there demos that are available so that people can really understand how this works? I mean, is there a voice that gets activated through the
I would guess that if you're totally new to this, YouTube is a better channel, and just search for Tobii Dynavox on YouTube, because there are some fantastic stories, some of them curated by us, some of them truly homemade, and they are very real. And I think that's it's a very good, it will help you understand how this works, because it is still strange to explain, hey, this device can it can see what you're looking at and you control it with your eyes. I know, Audrey, you and I met probably 4 or 5 years ago. I think you tried it? Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's typically it's wow, this sounds like a dad joke. It's eye-opening, right? It's
eye-opening.
Yeah.
And it's first of all, people don't understand. I mean, you really are leading a remarkable company because you are changing people's lives each and every day.
Yeah.
So that's quite a mission. That's really working on something that is, bigger than yourselves. And at the same time, you're building careers and futures for people who are highly talented that get to work on this stuff. So it's very meaningful.
Yeah, and it also does something to the dynamic of the company. We're an international tech company. We're almost exactly 50-50 men and women in the company. We are working a lot on diversity and inclusion because we believe it's, at the end of the day, good for business and it's good for our users. And we're, I don't know, 50 or so nationalities in the company. There are definitely things we should do even better, but the fact that we've been able to stick to that also through a pandemic makes me feel that we're stronger than ever before. And one of the reasons why we've managed so well also through this pandemic in almost any country is because of some of those values. And like you say, it's highly mission driven.
Well, I think about your company and I think about, COVID and so many people being sequestered, and particularly people who live in nursing homes and they can't have visits, et cetera. It should give us an appreciation for what it's like for people who can't communicate.
Absolutely.
And you're unlocking that. So I'm not trying to draw discrete parallels, but you're unlocking that.
Oh, it is very concrete.
It's important.
In a situation like this, it becomes very concrete because everybody can understand what it's like not to be able to physically meet someone and express. And that's that's what every day is like for the vast majority of our users. And I believe we have figured out a way how we can, at least to a certain degree, and sometimes to a large degree, compensate and overcome that.
Well, you have been a big personal proponent of Pittsburgh, which, you know, we appreciate. What's your favorite thing? You haven't been here in like 8 or 9 months, but what's something that you miss?
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm a Swede. It's like we eat hockey pucks for breakfast. So not being able to go to a game and from time to time cheering on some of my my fellow Swedes down on the ice is of course something I miss. I must say, you do sports, not just ice hockey, much better than us. And I'm just talking not just on the field, the whole thing.
The whole thing, right?
The
So
whole thing.
what do you think about the Steelers then? 10-0, right?
Well, to start with, American football is something I have to learn. It's something I have to understand. And I am learning much more through my colleagues. And we have a little bit of a battle because I also have people on my executive team who comes from Boston. So sometimes we have to spend the first 15 minutes of our
Boston doesn't really have a team. That's just pretend.
I'm not going to step into this beehive right now. One thing I do wish, however, was that I could be there to celebrate Thanksgiving. I know it's going to be a very different Thanksgiving this year with a lot of restrictions, but it's a fantastic holiday. And, you know, I'm going to be working Thursday and Friday like it was any other November day. And I'm going to be thinking about you guys. So.
Well, we can't thank you enough. First of all, thanks for joining us. What time is it in Stockholm right now? 6 o'clock? 6:30?
6:32.
6:30, okay. And the sun has set for 3+ hours in Stockholm by now.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate seeing you. I'm very glad that you're safe. You've given us a link to your website for careers, and to say that we really want to make sure that you are back in Pittsburgh very soon. Thanks for being an incredible champion. And I think that's it, right? Jonathan, is there anything? I know that we're not going to be doing business as usual on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Yeah.
But who do we have tomorrow?
We're still booking that guest right now.
We are booking that guest right now. Okay.
We know, we'll let everybody else know. It's the joys of Thanksgiving week, so it's all fun.
Well, I want to thank you, Fredrik Ruben. Thanks for your leadership. Stay safe. And we will have a happy holiday, as well as you should. You should probably take Thursday off. If you don't understand, maybe Friday at least.
We will keep the wheel spinning instead and make sure that you guys can be totally off.
But thank you for the work that you're leading. It's really highly valued, so important, and so excited to see all the changes that you've made, even during the hardest times of the pandemic.
True pleasure. Thank you for having me. And
Thank
again,
you.
I hope to be back really soon.
Yes, it would be great to see you. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe.